Researchers at Queen's University used brain imaging to count something nobody had ever measured before: how many distinct thoughts the average person has in a single day. The number they found was 6,200. 6,200 voices in your head every single day. So when you're trying to figure out if one specific thought is God speaking to you, you're not just discerning silence from sound. You're trying to isolate one signal out of 6,000 others competing for the same frequency. No wonder this feels impossible. But it isn't. Once you know exactly what to listen for, you sit down to pray about a decision, and thoughts start arriving immediately. One sounds calm. One sounds urgent. One sounds like fear. One sounds like something you've wanted all along, dressed up in spiritual language so it feels more acceptable to want it. You've heard other people say, "God told me to take the job. God told me to end the relationship. God told me to move," with a confidence you've never actually felt about your own decisions. And privately, you've wondered, is something wrong with me? Am I just not spiritual enough to hear this clearly? Or is what I'm calling God's voice actually just my own fear or my own desire wearing a disguise? That uncertainty is exhausting, especially when the decision in front of you actually matters. Scripture doesn't leave this vague. From Elijah in 1 Kings 19, to Jesus' own teaching about his sheep knowing his voice in John 10, to Paul's direct instructions on testing what you believe you're hearing. There's an actual framework here, not just a feeling you're supposed to somehow develop on your own. Here's a framework that makes this dramatically simpler. In any moment of decision, there are usually 4 distinct voices offering input, and learning to name each one is most of the battle. There's fear, the voice that speaks in worst-case scenarios, urgency, and catastrophizing. There's desire, the voice that already wants a specific outcome and searches for spiritual justification to support it. There's the accuser, the voice that specializes in condemnation, shame, and reminding you of every reason you're unqualified or unworthy. And then there's the Spirit, the voice John 10 describes as familiar to those who belong to him, one that his sheep know. Notice something important. 3 of these 4 voices are loud, urgent, and demanding immediate response. The 4th is usually the quietest one in the room. Here's the bold claim. If a thought is pressuring you toward an immediate decision, wrapped in either panic or shame, it's statistically much more likely to be voice 1, 2, or 3, not voice 4. Practical idea: next time you're wrestling with a decision, write down every distinct thought you're having about it, and next to each one, guess which of the 4 voices it sounds like. Just the act of separating and naming them takes away a huge amount of their combined noise. But naming the voice is only step 1. The next question is what each voice actually sounds like in practice. Fear has a very specific vocabulary. It sounds like you have to decide right now. If you don't act immediately, you'll lose everything. This is the only option left. Fear rarely allows for patience, because patience gives you room to notice fear is exaggerating. Desire has a different, sneakier vocabulary. It sounds suspiciously like exactly what you already wanted before you started praying. It tends to arrive already fully justified, with every counterargument pre-answered, because you built the case for it before you ever brought it to God. Desire rarely challenges you. It rarely asks anything difficult of you. It just confirms. Here's the test worth remembering. Genuine direction from God frequently asks something of you: patience, humility, forgiveness, an uncomfortable step of obedience. A thought that conveniently requires nothing difficult and confirms everything you already wanted deserves a second, more honest look. Practical idea: for your current decision, ask yourself directly, did I want this outcome before I ever started praying about it? If yes, that doesn't automatically make it wrong. It just means you need extra scrutiny, because desire is exceptionally good at borrowing spiritual language to sound like conviction. There's a third voice, though. That's often the most damaging precisely because it can sound almost religious. Revelation 12 verse 10 describes Satan as the accuser of our brothers, someone whose primary tactic is condemnation, not obvious temptation. This voice rarely announces itself as evil. It sounds like your own inner critic, and it specializes in one specific move, taking a real, legitimate conviction from God and twisting it into shame that paralyzes you instead of correction that moves you forward. Here's the difference that matters most. Conviction from the Spirit feels specific, points toward a clear next step, and leaves room for grace. Condemnation from the accuser feels global, vague, identity level. You're always like this, you'll never change, you don't even deserve to ask, and leaves you stuck instead of moving. If a thought about your decision makes you feel smaller, more hopeless, or more disqualified rather than clearer about a next step, that's a strong signal you're listening to the accuser, not the Spirit. Even if the thought is technically wrapped in true-sounding spiritual language. Practical idea. Next time a thought about your decision leaves you feeling paralyzed and ashamed rather than clear and able to move forward, say out loud, "If this is really from God, it will lead somewhere, not just condemn me and stop there." Then wait for what comes next. So if 3 of the 4 voices are this easy to misidentify as spiritual, how do you actually recognize the real one? Jesus says something remarkably practical in John 10 verse 27. "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." Not, "My sheep occasionally get a lucky signal." Here, present tense, ongoing, expected. Across Scripture, a consistent pattern emerges for what this voice tends to sound like. It's usually quiet rather than loud. Elijah's still, small voice, not a wind, earthquake, or fire. It's peaceful even when the decision itself is hard. Philippians 4 verse 7 describes a peace that guards your heart, present specifically in the middle of difficulty, not only after it resolves. It aligns with Scripture already written. It will never ask you to do something the Bible directly contradicts. And it usually asks something of you, rather than simply confirming what you already wanted. Here's the practical filter, all 4 questions together. Is this quiet or urgent? Does it bring peace even if the path is hard? Or does it bring panic or paralysis? Does it align with what Scripture already says or contradict it? Does it ask something of me or just comfortably confirm what I already wanted? The more of these 4 line up, the more confidence you can have that you're hearing voice 4, not 1, 2, or 3. Practical idea. Write your current decision at the top of a page and answer these 4 questions honestly underneath it, in writing, not just in your head. Seeing the answers in black and white removes a surprising amount of the internal noise. But even with this filter, there's one more layer most people skip entirely. Proverbs 15 verse 22 says plans fail without counsel, but succeed with many advisors. This isn't a suggestion to outsource your prayer life. It's an acknowledgement that self-deception is real and that a second set of eyes, someone who knows Scripture and knows you, often catches what you can't catch alone, especially when desire or fear is loud enough to distort your own hearing. Here's the bold claim. If you're only ever discerning major decisions in total isolation, you're removing one of the primary tools God actually built into the process. Community isn't a backup plan for people who can't hear God well enough on their own. It's part of the design. Practical idea. For your current decision, bring it to 1 or 2 trusted, spiritually mature people, not to hand them the decision, but to ask them directly, "Does what I'm describing sound more like fear, desire, or genuine peace to you?" Let their honest answer be real input, not just a formality. At the start, I told you there are roughly 6,200 thoughts competing in your mind every single day. Now you have an actual framework for finding the one that matters. Name the 4 voices, learn what fear and desire specifically sound like, recognize the accuser by the shame it leaves behind instead of the clarity, and check the Spirit's voice against quietness, peace, Scripture, and what it asks of you, with trusted people helping you see clearly when you can't. This week, take the decision you're wrestling with and run it through these 4 questions on paper, not just in your head. If this message spoke to you today, subscribe. We keep talking about what really matters here every week.